today we have Jenny Moore with Cruise Planners answering your travel related questions. The number down at the bottom of your screen, 336-379-5775. All right, so this person's asking, when are the cheap flights like Frontier okay? Any hacks that you recommend?
So for the low-cost airlines, you really have to be 100% flexible. Not having to reach a destination on a specific date or even returning. What we run into is those low-cost airlines, they don't have the number of flights, nor do they partner with other airlines. So you may get on a flight and maybe it's canceled, mechanical, weather, or whatever, and they may not have one for another couple of days and cannot put you on another airline because they don't partner with any others. The other thing to think about is on those low-cost airlines is that by the time you pay for everything else, you've got to get a seat, you've got to pay for this, you've got to pay for that, you're really not saving that much money. You're better off if you were going on vacation, it's something you've dreamed of, just look for the best rates on your air.
Okay. This person's asking, what is the best European river cruise? Best cruise line? Got any tips on that? And I know you've been on several of those.
I do. I actually have some favorites. I think one thing to keep in mind, depending on the rivers, is all cruise ships on the on the Rhine and the Danube are actually the same size. So you want to look at what is truly included. Some will say, oh, it's all included. But when you start reading the fine print, it's not. Also, really look at the number of people on board. My personal favorite, I will be honest, are either Avalon or Scenic are the two. They just do such a great job. You also want to look at, depending on the season, the draft of the ship. Is that ship going to be able to get through when there's low waters, potentially in the summer?
Oh, okay. Didn't even think about that. All right. The next person says, should you do a currency exchange in the U.S. or when you arrive in whatever country you're visiting?
The best place to do a currency exchange is actually at the ATM at the airport when you land. Don't go to a currency exchange place, but if you go to the ATM, you will get the best rate right off of your bank or credit card.
Interesting. I would not have thought about that either. Okay. And then the next one is there a cruise to Morocco?
Cruise to Morocco. Actually, yes, there is. Obviously not one of your major cruise lines as far as the mass market, but there are definitely some smaller cruise lines that a little bit more upscale that definitely get there, and with the expedition cruising.
I'm guessing you're going to fly somewhere and then take the cruise.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Let's talk about next summer, because people are already looking at next summer's vacation. Is there something that we should be thinking about, like vacation destination part?
Well, destination parts, I think we're seeing kind of all over the place. If you are looking Europe, everyone is still looking Europe right now, Greece, Italy, those destinations, you do want to start looking now. It is not too early. They will be booking up, even Caribbean. The thing to keep in mind is do not, and I really want to stress that, do not piecemeal it together. Grab a hotel, grab some air, package it together, work with your travel advisor, because they can get contract rates on all of that and make sure that it all seamlessly goes together. When you start piecemealing it, you're really asking for trouble.
All right, let's talk about this too, the whole asking for trouble if you don't have travel insurance. Now, there are some trips that you take that you're like, okay, I paid $200 for the plane ticket and whatever else. I don't necessarily need travel insurance. But when you're talking about a cruise, you're talking about a European vacation, you're talking about a Caribbean vacation. Let's talk about, what do we need to know about travel insurance?
So a couple things you want to look at, and one of the biggest things is most people don't realize that when you go out of the country, and that includes going on a Bahamas cruise or anything like that, most of the time your U.S. health insurance does not cover you. So heaven forbid you get sick or anything while traveling, but you want to look at, what exactly are the terms and conditions? What is covered? Are they giving you a refund? Or are they giving you a credit? How much is it? I'll see people every day that say, oh, this is covering me for $5,000 of medical. Well, if anyone's been to a hospital recently, $5,000 medical doesn't get you very far, especially when you're out of the country.
Okay, gotcha. All right, this next question is, what are the top destination spots right now? And can you tell us maybe a spot that isn't too popular that maybe you consider a hidden gem?
Yeah, so hot spots right now, Croatia, Italy, Greece. Those are really where everyone wants to get to, but I would kind of swerve away from those a little bit. Actually, Alaska is also big, but we're coming up on the very, very tail end of Alaska right now, but for next year. And that's something that I do think that we all need to consider. Hidden gems, I personally love the river cruises and doing that. I also, Australia, New Zealand, those are a little bit longer. You can't squeeze that into a week. So, maybe a 2-week vacation. And then also, there's a lot of Caribbean islands, Antigua, some of those St. Croix that are not the normal ones. But what you have to consider in going to some of these hidden gems is that because they aren't very popular, there's not a lot of air, so your air tends to be more expensive getting there.
Okay, gotcha. All right, we're going to talk about Alaska trips, overseas, and traveling during hurricane season. Those are all the 3 questions I got in the queue.